And narcissists, quite often what they do is they create these toxic environments in order just to create more hostility and more aggressive situations. And a lot of that has to do with this uncontrollable narcissistic rage that they just seem to have deep inside them. In front of them, it just has to come out. So they invent stories in order for their rage to come out, and then they can justify their rage. And if you're in it, you know what that feels like? It feels like almost you're living in a Michael Bay movie where it's just like explosions of narcissistic rage are just part of the everyday daily soundtrack. And victims of narcissism are just trapped in this roller coaster of their own emotions, and they're just subjected to just unpredictable shifts between affection and cruelty, affection and cruelty, affection and cruelty. And that messes with our brain because we're getting oxytocin and then we're getting adrenaline, we're getting oxytocin, we're getting adrenaline, we're going back and forth, back and forth. And both of these are all extreme emotions, and we get addicted to these extremes. And even when the abuse ends, there's going to be a withdrawal period because there's so many chemicals in our body that our body's now used to that's just cranking out on its own. And being in those environments, going back and forth, it's almost like trying to, predict the weather on Jupiter, because it's like you look up and then, at 1 minute, it's like, oh, hey, I got a tan sky. And then the next, it's like, oh, that's more of a taupe. And oh, now it's absolutely brown. And then it's pure white. Wow, that's interesting. And all of a sudden, it's just like acid rain is falling us. And what do you know? My skin is melting. And it's that toxic environment. Just like, It's important to get an umbrella and just get out of that situation. Narcissists never seem to be able to stop or pause their ability or the grasp of trying to control everything, every aspect of a victim's life. It's like narcissists have just become this master puppeteer, and they can't see themselves as any other role. And they're just pulling all the strings. They're trying to isolate their victims from family, from friends. They'll sabotage relationships, any kind of life event. God forbid it's your birthday or it's Christmas or there's something else that's taking attention away from the narcissist. And what you'll find is they'll continually, subconsciously, and subtly and covertly just sabotage all sorts of different life events. And, those goals that you're like going towards and turning your life into just a never-ending episode of, it could be like the Truman Show, where it feels like you're just trapped in this little bubble of a reality that's everyone's kind of walking around, and yet they're not real people. They're all just characters in the narcissistic little game. And then the second that somebody challenges their role, it's just like they're fired and they're replaced with somebody else. And God forbid that a victim of narcissism tries to actually get some kind of sympathy or just like a little grain of respect from a narcissist and realize that they can't, because what they're met with is like stonewalling and just silent treatments. It's like dealing with a silent, superhero that makes you feel invisible. And they keep going with their tactics. It's just like they'll introduce new characters into the play, new characters into the plot, and just create this triangulation where victims are just kind of pitted against each other as competition for love of the narcissist. And this could include ex-partners. And there always seems to be somebody else that's also judging you, or somebody else that believes the narcissist. And just because it's a lie is told and convinced to other people doesn't make it true, because reality is reality, and your reality is your reality, and it's worth holding on to with both hands. And some of the most, insidious tactics that a narcissist use is just this pathological use of lying, and just whether it's through numerous affairs or just the denigration of the victim to others. The way that they smear us in the world of around us, trying to just discredit us at any moment. It's like narcissists are playing a twisted game of Monopoly, but instead of collecting properties, what they're doing is collecting our emotions, connecting our vulnerabilities, and then eventually using them to twist us and turn us and just feel like we're broken. We owe money to the bank, and they're the bank, and they hold all of the emotional cards, and they don't. And if there is fidelity, it has nothing to do with dissatisfaction with their primary partner. It's all about their narcissist, insatiable need for supply. They'll get from anywhere, from anyone. But that's all part of unmasking these narcissistic tactics and seeing through the smoke and seeing through the mirrors of just narcissistic manipulation. And by shedding light on these toxic behaviors, just like, an episode of X-Files where it's just, we expose these paranormal, mysteries to the world. And then all of a sudden at the end of the episode is just like there's resolution. And the big part of it is you're not the only one that's stuck in this paranormal world, that there are others. There is a bigger community, and it is growing. And on this healing journey of ours, we can do this together. We can, break free from this maze and bring these hidden abuses out into the open And once it's out in the open, it just becomes far more real. And with more and more support and with more and more eyes on what's actually happening out there, more people can get out of these toxic loops long before they get as bad as they can possibly get. Now, understanding and being able to label the mind games that narcissists play, like revealing their tactics, and it's just one way of just dismantling this maze of manipulation that they create. Because once we actually see the tools and been able to label them, we're actually be able to pull them apart. And I'm going to take you through a bunch of those tactics, and by understanding them, you're going to get your power back. These tactics, they're almost like, a supervillain that has, a Batman utility belt just stuffed up his sleeve, because they'll just constantly pull out one thing after another. And before being able to resolve one issue, we're already on another and then another and another. And our minds just get all spun around and backwards. That's where they just kind of laugh. But let's look at each of these tactics. So first off, what we're going to do is just understand a bit better what narcissistic supply is. You can almost imagine as if it's like an energy vampire. It's just like a vampire that's just, craving something. So what is it? That's the narcissistic supply. It's they basically feed on attention and emotional distress of just multiple people all the time. And this is all done as a tactic in order just to inflate their already colossal egos. And they just woke up one day in the middle of their own reality show that they've created, and they've decided, oh, I'm the star of this show. And they expect, star treatment. The reality is they're not the star. And they're almost irrelevant. Which is probably why they play that narcissistic supply game, because they know deep down in their subconscious that they probably are irrelevant. They probably realize that already, but if they can kind of create a world around them that kind of supports their delusional fantasies, then maybe their fantasies aren't fantasies. Maybe they're real. And they're not. Now, how do they get this supply? Well, they play all these little manipulative games, and one of the games is, triangulation. And narcissists use triangulation, and it's not like, a typical love triangle. It's more like the Bermuda Triangle of just emotional chaos. It's just where victims go and then just disappear. And the reason narcissists do this and how they get their supply from triangulation is just by adding more people to the mix and then provoking, jealousy and insecurity in other people. It's like the narcissists are just trying to orchestrate a soap opera, and they're just wondering, and you're stuck in the middle of there wondering, who's writing this script? Because this character that you're being forced to play is nothing like your true self. And if you look around, you look at the other people that are being played off each other in these triangulations, they're not allowed to be themselves either. And let's keep going. Like another tactic that they use is gaslighting. And narcissistic gaslighting is like this psychological magic show where, the truth just kind of completely disappears into thin air. Narcissists deny, they minimize, they rationalize their abuse. And then they also use these circular conversations. It's also known word salad. And it's all done to deflect, accountability, leaving you questioning your own perception, your own reality. It's like, why can't I nail this person down to one thing? Because as soon as I think I got it, it changes and it moves over here and moves over here, because they're feeling this constant state of distress. And you might be trying to figure out, what is the distress that's happening over here? And all of a sudden it's just like, you can't resolve that for me. Here's another form of distress, and another one. And the whole loop is, even though the story keeps changing, their victim narrative, it always stays the same. It's like having a Rubik's Cube and trying to solve it, and you're getting close, and then the colors just suddenly change. It's like, it's an unsolvable puzzle. So, forget it. Now we're solving. And what are the other tactics in the narcissist arsenal? One of them is smear campaigns, and even the threat of a smear campaign. Because narcissists, they're not just content on causing you personal pain. What they want to do is ruin your reputation with just everybody. And they project all their abusive behaviors just onto you, making it, nearly impossible for anyone, just any kind of observer, to just, believe your accounts of the abuse. And it's like they're constantly running this, this political propaganda campaign, trying to, win the election to the mayor of their own crazy town. I don't want to go there. It's not a happy place. Another tactic that narcissists use is called blame shifting. And this is one of their favorite little games. Narcissists, they lack accountability, so you can't pin them down on anything. And they refuse to accept blame or accountability for any of it, and they end up just kind of putting it all onto you. Their manipulative conversations, they make it seem like you're the irrational one and you're the unstable one. And what this blame shifting does is it makes you feel like you're trying to justify yourself to just court, and, the narcissist is both the judge and the prosecutor. And when you're dealing with somebody who uses a lot of blame shifting, what it feels like is like you're trying to argue with a tornado. It's just chaotic. And at the end of it, after the tornado leaves, it's just like you're left in shambles. And this is your entire life. And you see how it just created this destructive path throughout it. And we just kind of dealt into some of those little narcissistic tactics, but understanding these narcissistic abuse tactics, it becomes really critical. And these tactics and this form of abuse, it isn't really covered in any of the psychology classes or any of the diagnostical manuals, because it's so hard to put this, mess of a 3D concept into like 2D words in order to make sense of it all. Because that emotional component, the twisting of reality, all those things, it's really hard to articulate. And by, shining a light on it, by bringing awareness to it, these narcissistic behaviors, what they'll end up doing is just losing their impact over you. You may feel like it's just me, it's me. And remember, it's just not true, because reality is anyone can become a victim. This isn't limited to one particular group. Anyone can fall prey to just narcissistic manipulation and tactics, because it comes on so small, so subtly, and then slowly it ramps up over time. And once it kind of hits those extreme ends, it's just like, let's take a look at the victims of this. What's the result of there? What's the fallout? And the fallout includes things like depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and just a profound sense of worthlessness. Thinking that there was a way that we could have solved this, and there really wasn't. So you can understand why those feelings are there and why those emotions are there. And if we prioritize just, recognizing this narcissistic behavior is important in our healing process, because it helps separate us. And it doesn't matter if this person has a formal diagnosis of NPD or narcissistic personality disorder or not. It really doesn't matter, because the persistent toxic behaviors are just basically the massive red flag. Because these behaviors, when you're like going on the road with them, as the red flags just kind of keep coming up, you realize the road is starting to get more and more treacherous. And if we can see these flags earlier on, we can get off this road, we can turn around, we can rebuild our lives. And because there's been so many victims, there are a lot of ways of healing and recovering from this. So remember, it's just like, if you're in this state and you're in this tense state, it's just like, don't be afraid to seek out for support. And if you suspect that you're in a narcissistic relationship, reach out to a professional, talk to friends, find support groups. Remember that you deserve a healthy and respectful partnership. And it's all that we've got when we're here together in this community, and we're not alone. And it's like places like Narcovery have been here for years now, just to help and support and just grow this, tribe of warriors that have just kind of overcome this. And as one person recovers, they inspire another and another and another. And the more people that we kind of heal and grow throughout this whole healing process, the more understanding that is out there, that the more in these little kind of groups and little communities, the more the people that are kind of acknowledging it and growing from it, as they see the signs in others, they can also help. And that as a society, we'll slowly start to just kind of contain narcissism, and eventually we can all grow from it. Thank you so much for watching. Please, like, share, comment. I'd like to know what you think. Let me know what you think. Put down your notes in the comments. Yeah, I'll be happy to respond. And, follow my feed. I've got, hundreds of videos out there, and there's hundreds more.